As you might have heard, there's been pretty compelling rumors going around recently about some kind of Rayman 3 remaster being in the work, and as a long-time Rayman 3 fan, having poured countless hours into it, it got me thinking, if Rayman 3 was to be re-released today, what would I like to see changed? So today, I will dive into a few points that I think could help make the game even better. Obviously, the first thing you expect from a remaster is a significant upgrade of the graphics, so that's gonna be the first thing on the list. Even if, honestly, the original still holds up really well to this day. It's still over 20 years old, and video game graphics have come a long way since then. It would truly be a blessing to see the game's beautiful and diverse environments under a fresh coat of paint, from the serenity of the land of the living dead to the anxiety of the desert of the Knarrans. And I can't talk about this without mentioning the work of Marcus Unreal, who's been remaking Fairy constantly in Unreal Engine. Even if not everyone will be a fan of the less cartoony art style, this is an amazing glimpse on what the game could look like with up-to-date graphics. It's truly remarkable work, especially for a fan-made project he made on his own, and I can only imagine how gorgeous a full-fledged remaster handled by professionals could look. Okay, so this one might not seem like much, but there's something which has always bothered me about the HUD. Why is the score counter always on screen? Everything disappears after a while, but not the score counter, even though it's arguably the least important part of the HUD. It always just sticks out like a sore thumb. How am I supposed to enjoy the game's beautiful landscapes with this constantly in the way? Obviously, having it show up at the start of levels and when you collect points is good, but I don't understand why it doesn't get hidden the rest of the time, just like the other HUD elements, or at least turn semi-transparent. No, maybe I'm just a HUD hater. After all, I'm the kind of person that plays Breath of the Wild with HUD turned off, so yeah, you let me know what you think of that one. A really cool feature in Rayman 3 is the photo mod. The game lets you freeze time and pan the camera around to take the perfect screenshot, which was really not that common back then as far as I'm aware. I don't even know of any older game that let you do that before, so Rayman 3 might be a pioneer in that matter. You can even get a description of many of the game's objects through it, which I'm sure is something many people miss. Now, obviously that photo mod is very limited for today's standards. The camera controls are very restricted and you can't add any effect or filter. So I think it'd be great to get it up to speed and let us go wild. Unlocked camera, depth of field, color correction. Let the imagination be the only limit, and I'm sure people will come up with amazing screenshots. One thing I've seen coming up a lot as a source of frustration for people playing the game is the power-up system, and especially the power-up's duration. Often, players don't really know what to do and struggle a lot with power-ups, leading to having to backtrack to grab the same can again, sometimes several times. So it got me thinking a rework of the power-up system could ease that up a bit. Some ideas that crossed my mind were that maybe the power-up timer could only start ticking when you actually use the power, or that it could be limited in number of uses instead of time, like the power fist in Rayman 2. The problem with that is that a lot of areas are specifically designed around how the power-up timer is, and a limited uses number would simply not work in many scenarios. And on top of that, another effect of power-ups is that they double your points, so messing with that would also have an impact on scoring. I guess you could maybe keep a separate timer unchanged just for double points, but yeah. As you can see, even though I feel like the power-up system is something that could be improved upon, I can't really come up with a perfect solution that doesn't create new problems at the same time. And I'm curious if anyone can think of something that could work. Something that should be a staple in any game is to try to minimize unskippable periods of time where control gets taken away from you. Which is something Rayman 3 is objectively already pretty good at. The game flows pretty well, you can skip every FMV cutscenes, unless you're playing on PS2, but I guess it's just not enough for the speedrunner in me. There's still a bunch of in-game cutscenes here and there that can get a bit annoying when you replay the game a lot, but at the same time I'm really torn apart with this, because, as I said, it's really not that bad already. And in speedruns, this actually forces you to get creative and look for ways to get around these cutscenes when possible, which resulted in some of the most insane skips in the game. Things that would have never even been considered if you could just skip the cutscene from the get-go. So yeah, all this to say that this is probably fine as it is, although please let us skip the intro cutscene at least.
Le manuel, manual, el manual, il manuale,
Another thing that would be a big quality of life improvement for me would be more in-depth language select settings. First of all, the only way to change the game's language in the original is to completely reset the game, which is quite impractical. So being able to handle that directly in the game settings will already be so much better. But what I would really love to see with that is the ability to both change the language of the voice lines and the language of the subtitles independently from each other. That's really something that should be a standard for me. That would let people experience the different dubs of the game, especially the glorious French one, while still being able to follow what's going on. Now we're gonna go beyond just improving on things existing in the original game with this one, because we're actually gonna talk about adding new content. Or to be more specific, bringing back things that were planned at some point in development, but ended up being cut from the final game. And there might be more than you think. You have, for example, the Xor, which is that giant monster that was supposed to be its own boss fight, that you can still see referenced in the game, and you might also remember him from one of the game's secrets. A bunch of minigames were also cut, including one with the aforementioned Xor, as well as a chess and a bowling one. There's even an entire level that was cut. It was going to be an underwater level, similar to the Selage boss fight level in the Land of the Living Dead, with its own creatures and a chase sequence. And that's just to name a few examples. No, we don't really know the exact reason things get cut. Often it's because of lack of time, but sometimes there might be another good reason. So it begs the question of if these all would actually be a beneficial addition to the game or not. And I'm not against entirely new content stuff either. Obviously, I'm not expecting an entire new world or something, but little things that could spice the game up, like new enemy variants, new collectibles, or even new minigames would all be a little plus that could make the game even more interesting. As long as it's not added through stupid paid DLCs, of course. So obviously, a very important thing in games is what you see, but another equally important thing is what you hear. So we're gonna talk about the music now. A game soundtrack is an integral part of its identity, and I think that can be said about Rayman 3. The game's musics are great, all very fitting to the environment they play in, and they help bring the atmosphere up. But even if they sound amazing as they are, I wouldn't be against a soundtrack reorchestration. I would love to hear what that would sound like, and I think that could bring the game even higher if it's done right. Just imagine taking your first steps in the Fairy Council, or racing against the rising lava in the Hoodlums headquarters, with all the beautifully arranged instruments singing in your ears. I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. And one thing that would also be nice to see is an official release of the soundtrack. Rayman 3 music is loved by many, and it's a shame there is no official way to listen to it and show your support to the artist. Maybe we could even get a physical release like they did for the Beyond Good and Evil 20th anniversary, although it won't be possible to fit the whole soundtrack on a record, so they would have to pick which tracks to include, I guess. And I'll end this list with the random small things. We can list the camera as something that could use some improvement. Although I feel like this problem is inherent to 3 platformers, it is pretty bad in some scenarios and will be welcomed if it could be improved in some way. Something else is the hit registration that can sometimes be really hit or miss, especially against certain enemies, where punches that you can clearly see hit their targets end up not registering for unexplainable reasons, making some fights way more frustrating than they should. If Ubisoft is releasing a remaster of a Rayman game, there's a good chance that it's to bring some attention back to it, in anticipation of the release of a new entry in the series. So I think it would be great to have some little Easter eggs sprinkled around in a remaster, hinting toward that potential new game to hype things up. Alright, to wrap things up, I have to answer an important question. What do I think are the chances we'll see any of the things I mentioned in a Rayman 3 remaster? Well, first of all, it's not even been 100% officially confirmed that its remaster was even happening at all, and even though there's been solid rumors from reliable sources, I would still hold my horses as long as there's no official announcement. And if it does happen, my guess is that it's probably gonna get the exact same treatment as Beyond Good and Evil with the 20th anniversary edition, which is actually pretty good, I think. This was a pretty significant graphical upgrade, packed with bonus content like concept arts and videos, as well as a reorchestrated soundtrack. It brought the game to current-gen platforms, as well as a PC version that doesn't require some intricate setup to get running properly, which could be the case for the original, and the same can be said about Rayman 3. And all of this for actually quite a fair price, with no stupid microtransactions or DLC. So yeah, I wouldn't be too mad if that's the treatment Rayman 3 gets for a remaster. And whatever happens, we will always have the original set in stone to go back to, which is why I'm not afraid of drastic changes and risk taking. I'm very hyped to see some movement in the Rayman world, and I really hope Ubisoft has been cooking something great for us. Like, come on, we've been patiently waiting for so long to get anything. Okay, that's all I could come up with. Again, I'm curious what you all think about all this, and if there's things I didn't mention that you would like to see in Rayman 3 Remastered, that's what comments are for, so feel free to leave one to share your thoughts. This is a YouTube video, so I have to tell you to smash like, subscribe, follow my Twitch and yada yada yada. Thanks for watching.